So, like, it's nerve-wracking constantly. Constantly nerve-wracking. And I've learned what to look for, so I know when it's getting a little dangerous and stuff. But,
You're saying the mental health side of the diagnosis.
no, I'm talking about diabetes side of it.
Like the DKA side of the diagnosis.
Yeah, and like I know when I start like going high or when I start going low, and I always have a sight in my bag, and I always have like 4 packs of fruit juice because going low is the worst, and being in the hospital is the worst.
We're gonna do an extended track, and the extended track will be unhurried and unfiltered. We'll just kind of finish off our conversation. We're glad that you want to stay and be a part of the rest of the podcast.
I like it.
I think you had a 5th grade teacher that really helped you with this.
Oh yeah, most definitely, because
Miss Bowden.
Miss Bowden was amazing because she was probably one of the first teachers who didn't see me as just the diabetic kid, because now me can see that like it is hard for an elementary school teacher to care for 28 other kids and a type 1 diabetic who's a new diabetic, doesn't really know what she's doing.
Yeah.
And again, insulin, 24 units as a 9-year-old in 3rd grade, right? Like that's not a great combination. And so we were lucky because my first teacher here was type 1. And so she helped me a lot.
Your 3rd grade teacher was type 1.
And then 4th grade was great. And
4th grade, she was so patient with you and so kind and so loving. And that's exactly what you needed.
That's what I needed.
And there were times where she was going through really hard stuff with her mom. And we actually just chose to keep you home.
Yeah.
So instead of working with a sub and like figuring that out, like this is too complicated. We'll just keep her home. And so I worked closely with the school because I get to advocate for what you need.
No, you fought for me hard, it's a huge deal because I can't be independent if you're constantly helping me. And diabetics need to have with a chronic illness, you need to have an illusion of independency because...
Well, I don't think illusion's the right word, but I think that there's a safety net that you need to have.
Yeah.
So if your life is a tightrope walker, and it is because you have to balance constantly. And you're tightrope walking with spinning plates that have to stay...
That are on fire.
Yeah. Right. Like, what's that meme? Type 1 diabetes is like riding a bike, but the bike's on fire, and you're on fire, and you're going through hell. And,
it's so hard. And...
So we had a team at the school, and we could go on... I could do tons... I could talk for hours about 504s and IEPs and getting your dream team is what I used to call it. Yeah. But like the diabetic educated team that is there to care for you and what we do in emergencies.
But so this 5th grade teacher, she had it normalized. So my blood sugars was for everybody to see on the back of an iPad. But she also helped. She was the first teacher I had good grades in. She was the first teacher that I learned how to read with. Like, I actually was reading with.
She helped you learn to love to read.
Draw. She helped me. She helped me learn my love of history. Like, because I was sick for forever. Like, since 6, I was sick. So, and that's throughout all of your elementary school. And when you're sick like that, you are incapable of learning. Your brain is not turned on. And so, like, I am a huge reader now. And so... I was writing these essays for these scholarships, and it was like, what is something that inspires you or makes you go on? And I'm like, my art. I need to create because it's my escape. That was my blood sugar beeping.
Oh. Are you low or high?
I'm at 289.
Oh, look, put it at the camera. So Gracie, we've come so far because we were part of the Night Scout when Night Scout first came out. That helped push the, look, so here's her pump. And she can dose from her pump. She can dose from her phone.
But it's squirrel. It's I hear it buzz and I have to Doug from up. Squirrel.
So this 5th grade teacher helped you, and
she helped me realize that the happiest I've ever been is when I'm not focused on diabetes. I'm not waiting for me to go high or low. I'll ride with it when it gets
You're just
there.
being in the moment.
I'm just being in the moment, which is really hard for me because
it is hard.
It's hard.
So as a kid, one of the best advice I got when you were first diagnosed was, I can't remember exactly who gave me this advice along the road, but it was in these early years. And they said, you have to talk about at least 3 things that are child related, not diabetic related, when you see her.
Yeah.
First.
Which is hard because if I come home grumpy as like a 9, you're like, what's your blood sugar?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I could have had a bad day. My feet could hurt. I could be hungry. But immediately you go to, are you high or low?
Yeah.
Because
that's usually the norm. It's not a question. Usually it's like, you are. Yeah. Like it's this statement. Which is, as a parent.
So I still get that way. When I get grumpy or peevish, Ethan will check my blood sugar. And he's like, oh, you're a little high. And I'm like, don't tell me that. It doesn't help with my mood.
Yeah. Well,
but it's true.
Yeah. And like there's this fine balance again of like it doesn't define you. And so
but it is my day-to-day life.
It is your day-to-day life. And this is your diagnosis. It's not mine.
So that's what I was saying with long story short, because I can never put my words in a box that I want to, is with this essay that I've been writing, it's like I'm not going to put I'm a type 1 diabetic. That's not going to be my sob story because it is a sob story, right? Like
it can be.
It can be. But it's a really easy sob story to write for an essay, especially for scholarships. But I refuse to write about it like that. I talk about how I've built a community with my type 1 diabetes, and I've built so much of, I've learned patience, I've learned kindness, I've learned empathy. I know I have bonded with so many people, which I'm not a very people-y person, but I've bonded with so many people over illnesses because I understand more than a lot of people do. Yeah. Like I get the pains of doctors so much. I get the pains of dealing with any sort of insurance. I hate hold music. It,
my gosh.
It hurts my soul. I hate it.
Yeah.
And with things like Hodiah, which is a summer camp for kids, I have been involved with it for 9 years now, like 10 years.
So the funny story about Hodiah is I was like, there's no way I'm sending my 9-year-old to a camp. And my mom was like, Jamie, you need to do it. It's the best thing for you. I was like, no way. That's like where kids get raped and like murdered by bears. Like that, no. And
in
so
a new state, because we just moved to Idaho.
We didn't know anybody. Like
in the middle of nowhere, it's 4 hours away.
So my mom was like, no, you have to do this. And I called them and I was like, I'll come volunteer. Like I'm a great person. And they're like, no, sorry. Like you can't come volunteer at your kids' camp. And so I was like, okay, I signed my mom up. So I text my mom, I'm sending Gracie, but you're also going to be a leader. So she went that first year as a camp counselor, and they didn't even put you guys in the same cabin. Like she was just there to like scout it out for me.
I only went over to her cabin once because she had glow sticks for me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like the only, and I was there for less than 5 minutes. I had to roll back in and roll back out.
And my mom came home from that and she was like, oh, did you know they wake up all the kids at 2 a.m. to check their blood? And I was like, yes, Mom.
I do that every 20 minutes when she's asleep.
We've been diagnosed since last July. Come on. Yes. It was so eye-opening for my mom on what we actually deal with. And my mom was a principal in Las Vegas for 30 years. And she was like, I had no idea the parents of type 1 diabetics, like this is what they were dealing with.
And you cried the whole week I was gone.
I know. I did.
It is so hard. Because
it was really hard.
It's not just my illness. Like, it's not my disease. It's our families because...
And part of it, like, I cried because it was, like, such a burden lifted off of me. And I felt so guilty about that. And, like, that's a hard, weird place for a mom to be. And, I've leaned into it, and I've done a lot of counseling to learn how to lean into that. And I think that actually takes us to when you were 14 in middle school, and I sat you and my mom down, and I said, I can help one of you. I can't help both of you. It's too all-encompassing. My mom had just been diagnosed with cancer. You were in middle school and being a teenager. And I did. I sat you down. It was before COVID, which, my goodness, thank heavens that it was. That, like so many of these things, there's just times where like I'm inspired to do something and I follow through with it, and it is the best thing that possibly could have happened.
Yeah.
So I sat you guys down and I said, do you remember what I said? Do you remember how I said it? Like, do you remember?
Not really, no.
Oh my gosh, it was so impactful for me.
Well, COVID hit and everything else.
Well, do you remember? How do you remember me not following you anymore?
Because Grandma started following me from that. I don't remember you sitting us down. I just know that Grandma started following me and you unfollowed me.
I sat you down and I said, I'm unfollowing you. Like this safety net of elementary school that we've had. Like I'm there for you and I'm here to help you. But you're making some big choices. and I can't handle both of these. And Mom was going through cancer and chemo. Like it was a lot to help her with her stuff.
Yeah. And you had a baby. Is Adelaide?
Well, she was a year old. She wasn't a baby.
That's a baby.
I had a toddler. I had a baby.
We couldn't walk until we were 2. You had a baby.
She was yeah, okay. No. You guys, I love my
it's not that
big chunky babies.
We chose not to.
Stubborn much?
Oh, I wonder who I get it from.
So that's when I stopped following you on the app. Yeah. Just like your squirrel stuff. So let's take that and let's get into caregiving of a type 1 diabetic and some of the lessons that you've learned, which some of them are modeled from us, modeled in a good way or a bad way. Like it doesn't matter. It's still a lesson.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think I started appreciating the caregiving that you've done for me when it was that 1 year, because with Hodiah, you can be a camper and then you can come back as a leader. And it was, I think it's like my second year.
Yeah, once you're in teen camp at Hodiah, so you started in kids camp and then you go up to teen camp. Once you're in teen camp, you can become a CIT,
which is counselor in training.
And the counselor in trainings can do that until you're 18, and then you become an actual counselor.
Yeah.
So you did that your 16, 17 summers. 16 and 17, when you were 16, 17-year-old. And then when you were 18, you became a counselor. So this.
I didn't go my 18th. I didn't go last year.
Oh yeah. Oh, you didn't?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So now at 19, you are going to be a counselor this summer. At the same week that Avon will be there.
I'm so excited. But, okay, so what's funny about this, it was like my second time doing it. I did it for 2 weeks because I love counseling. I love being the mentor. I love helping people because it's helped me a lot. I love helping the littles. And the first week was long. It was a long first week because we had the youngest. And then the second week, it was like the next older group.
And you're out in the woods. You don't have reception.
No.
So you just get to call home from the cabin.
No, it's from when we go. So we don't really have reception. I can't call you from the cabin and the campsite. And we do that on purpose because
it helps.
We would have kids calling home all the time, and it would not be great. And so we were on a drive to Stanley, which is the closest little tiny population of 89 people town. And I called you because it was just me and another counselor. And I was like, Mom.
I remember where I was standing. I was at work. I went out into the front yard and I was like sitting on the steps, like listening to you talk to me.
It was so hard. It was so hard. Because we had these kids who, it was so hard. So me and another counselor, we were in the same cabin the week before. And so it was our second week going on. And we're like, okay. And what's cool about Hodiah is that it's a 2-to-1 camper to counselor ratio. And then they throw in a CIT there. So I didn't have any of my own kids, but I kind of had my own kids. And so we're exhausted. And one of these girls, she came... and she was a little bit of a train wreck. And by day 3, it was hot, and our cabin smelled atrocious. Like, you would go in there and gag. Like, we could not be in the cabin because it smelled so bad. And we were like, what the heck is happening? So me and this other counselor, we are fed up, we are tired, and we want to just go into our cabin a little bit, sit in the cool, like, have a little bit of quiet time, because that's normally what you do, but we couldn't because it smelled like something was dying in our cabin. I kid you not, you laugh. It like, I can't do it. And so we had all the girls pull out everything. And this girl who was a little bit of a train wreck, a little bit making us pull out our hair all week, she had like, was carving without talking to us. She wouldn't eat her food. She was just giving us attitude. We had to call the service, like, child service thing because of things that she was saying. And it turned out she was just lying. And so then we were having the service. It was CPS following us around, and it was a lot. And she had brought sushi and didn't eat it. And we were in the oldest cabin too. And so there wasn't like real AC. And so it was just sitting in a hot pot of our cabin for 3 days in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the woods. Yeah. It was so bad. Like, we just threw away the lunchbox. We're like, I'm not even opening this. We're just, And this girl, like, because we talk and text each other, and, like, we had Wi-Fi as leaders. And the kids' phones were technically on Wi-Fi at night because it was connected to, like, a thing. So then the, like, nurses, the camp nurses could see their blood sugar. Monitor.
Yeah.
And she was using her phone after, because, like, we'll take the phones away and plug it into because, like, we can't have kids calling their moms to come pick them up. That's the main thing. And she was using her phone, using the Wi-Fi, which kept causing it to crash. Like, it was more than just, we couldn't have kids calling home. Nobody could be on anything else but their Dexcom because it would cause the whole system to crash. And so it was like my last straw. I was so done. And I loved these girls, and I had a great week. But it was a lot. And so I called my mom. I was like, when I come home, I'm cleaning my room, and I'm never arguing ever again. And I love you so much, and you have done so much for me. And I never really understood it until this moment. And because it's not only a diabetic, it's also a 13-year-old kid who wants to rebel against everything you're doing and saying, and thinks that they're the hottest of trash ever known to grace this earth. And it's so hard because
it gave you some perspective.
It gave me a lot of perspective. And since then, I did summer camps where I would go and hang out with the little itty bitties who are too young to go to overnight camp. And so there's day camps over in Boise that I would go to. And I was still CIT, so I couldn't, like, check out the kids, but I could go talk to the parents. So the parents would come and talk to me a lot too, because I love talking about my diabetes. It's great.
And I remember talking to CITs when we dropped you off as a little kid.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing these 16, 17-year-old kids that are, like, capable and doing things and walking and beautiful and
excited
to be there and happy to. And I remember thinking, is my 9-year-old ever going to be able to grow up and be what it is that I see you being? So there is, like, a real special place for those CITs for parents to come and talk to. So here you are. Now you're a CIT talking to the parents.
CIT talking to his parents are like these 6-year-olds and these 4-year-olds, and they're like, I don't know what to do. They won't listen to me. All these things. I'm like, you gotta let them be kids. That's the biggest thing. And I have talked a lot about food with diabetics because I've had problems with food. Because not only am I diabetic, but I'm also celiac, and so there are times where I hate food. I hate it because it is exhausting to constantly be thinking about what to eat, and it's so expensive. And as a college student, like, I don't want to buy bread. It's so expensive.
$9 loaf of bread that tastes like cardboard.
It tastes like cardboard. It's so bad. And so it's exhausting. But every time I talk, food gets brought up with kids, because it always is, because your kid doesn't want to eat the carbs that you just carved, and now you're freaking out because they've got all these carbs in and they're not going to do it, and you're trying to help them be healthy too because they can't just eat just straight candy and all these things, and you have to find different resources. So you got to eat an apple if you're low, but can't eat a Starburst because that's unhealthy, and it's a lot of candy, and you like it's this whole balance.
I like how you're saying this balance thing because I like the spinning plates analogy because with spinning plates, when you're like spinning a plate on top of a thing, you have to constantly like
is
keep
it still spinning? Yeah.
If it stops spinning, it falls
and breaks.
And so sometimes, like as a parent of type 1 diabetic that has celiac, I remember going to a Relief Society lesson, and they were talking all about healthy foods and healthy lunches to pack for your kids. And I was so pissed off by the end of it because I was like, damn it, you guys don't know anything.
No.
And I didn't mean to say it that way. And I like, but like you have that healthy lunch that you just packed us like 250 carbs.
It's carbs and gluten.
It's carbs and gluten. That's all you're packing.
Which
like
I can't eat gluten. And so it's hard to balance for a 9-year-old sending their kid off to lunch to eat 200 carbs.
Yeah. So and it just gets complicated really quick. And I want any parent out there to know, like, it's a spinning plate. You can set down the, like, I'm going to be a granola healthy parent for a little bit and just, like, feed the kids Starburst because they've overdosed and, like, they need Starburst. So it's this balance. We don't want to cause an eating disorder because we have a, like, eating order because we have to count every carb.
That's what
we have to know what it like, it's just all consuming and it's very, very hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I've had to walk because I got into the gym for a while because it was a huge coping mechanisms for me with other things that were going on. And so I was counting my calories a little bit. Like I was watching because I wanted, like, that's the whole thing. You got to eat more calories if you're going to, and I couldn't let myself. I was like, I'm not going to do that because it is so dangerous because I have to look at the back of the package anyways for carbs.
Yeah.
And so it's a super slippery slope. And so what I would tell parents of these like 4-year-old kids is it's okay if your kid's blood sugar goes high. It's not the end of the world because you can catch up to it. Like you've been trained, you've been taught, you know how to help it, and let the kid eat the damn juice. Like let the kid eat the damn candy. There can be a donut party once in a while, and it's okay because
maybe not if they have celiac.
But
gluten-free donuts.
Like you can't keep your kid home from school because you know one of their classmates has a birthday party and they're going to bring cupcakes and you don't want to. Just let the kid eat the cupcake and it's okay.
But it is hard.
And it is hard because part of it is you can see how the diabetes affects the kid and the kid can't really see it as much. And
there's stupid diabetes jokes on top of it. We're like, that's not how diabetes works.
Well, my favorite thing is so it's always like, how much sugar did you eat before you were diagnosed and all these things? Like, what did you eat before? And what's funny is we went to Sonic and I got a massive slushie and drank so I drank probably around like 300, 400 carbs before. And so I think it's hilarious because I really did drink a lot of sugar and then I was diagnosed. And, that's not how it works. That's not how it works.
And it's actually how we actually figured it out because we like dosed you with, I think it was closer to 700 carbs that we had given you leading up because we knew that you had to, we went in for a UTI. I knew that she didn't have a UTI, but like I didn't know nobody else was believing me.
Yeah.
So, but we'd Garth started cutting carbs because of type 2 diabetes and like pre-diabetic stuff. So we kind of cut carbs anyways. And you just naturally didn't like eating a lot of carbs.
Because my body was killing itself a little bit.
Which we didn't connect. So anytime we'd go into the doctor, it was never enough to... So we were kind of in the honeymoon period before you got diagnosed until we overdosed you.
Your body will overcompensate. And I was a kid running around. We were swimming all the time because we had a pool, which exercise, fluids, insulin, which are the biggest thing. That's how you get your blood sugar down.
Not paprika or cinnamon.
Don't.
Or apple vinegar, apple cider vinegar.
I went to a hospital it was like a kidney infection I had. And they sat down and they were like, hey, did you know you drink oat milk on a treadmill and eat cinnamon and your diabetes will be cured? And so I was like, don't tell me that.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that.
So there's some insensitive things that people say.
And it's not insensitive because it's not out of malice. It's just...
Yeah, out of ignorance.
It's out of ignorance, which... is so hard. And what's really funny is I just want to help teach because it's been such a blessing. Like, every blessing is a curse attached to it. And so I love teaching people. And I remember doing assemblies when we were younger about the whole school. I found my Nick Jonas signed picture.
Oh, fun.
Because we did a Beyond Type 1 thing.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And I randomly went on their site again. And I was like, oh, this is so cool.
It is cool stuff.
So the information is out there. It's just...
We worked really hard to normalize your diagnoses.
Yeah.
Which is very futuristic of me.
It is it's paid off.
And...
Because now I can see, with my context, how it's affected other kids. Because part of Hodiah, too, is you grow up with your, like, camp members. And, like, it is so hard seeing where some of my friends are. Because I'm like... It's just a lot different than what I'm at. And...
Yeah.
I had a friend who refused to use an insulin pump until we were sitting in the back of the car at Hodiah, and I needed to change my site because we just went swimming at the lake, and I couldn't reach behind my arm, and I didn't like doing it, so I was like, hey, just put it here and press it and pop it and it'll be fine. Because I wasn't scared of my diabetes, and I didn't realize that 90% of the kids there were. And she was like, don't ask me to do that. And I was like, oh, it's fine. You're fine. And I didn't realize that. But the next year, she came back with an insulin pump. She had been diagnosed 9 years before that. Yeah. And she was just on shots the whole time. That was her first insulin pump. Because I helped her realize that it's not this villainous, scary thing. Because there's so many horror stories with diabetes. I heard this story of this kid whose pump was ripped off by a sub because he thought it was a phone during a test. And, like, your insulin cooking in your tubing when you're going on a hike, and then you're in the middle of the nowhere, your insulin gets, like, there's so many horror stories that a mother or a caregiver with diabetes are like, they're gonna die, so they can't have this because it's gonna end up with this, so we'll just put them on shots, and, like, the sites won't get infected, and so they won't have to deal with that. And but
so there's a couple of things I want to point out about you, Gracie, is that you did embrace it.
I love telling stories, and I realize I'm rambling about my stories.
I love it. You did embrace it.
Yes.
You didn't let it defy you. No. You're realistic about what it is that you participate in, knowing that, like, you still have things that have to happen.
Yeah.
And then when it royally screws up, I
can pick myself up afterwards.
Pause a little bit and pick yourself up. And I think that is an important lesson in life, let alone, like, with type 1. Like, just that is really, really inspiring. And I think that there's been times where you hate it being an inspirational message.
Oh, don't sit me down and say, you are such an inspiration, because I could never do what you're doing. You're doing so much hard things. I'm like, yeah, I know, lady. Don't tell me that. Because I hate it. Oh, you can hear my pump giving insulin. It's tough. As a 9, 10, 11-year-old trying to figure out life, and this 40-year-old woman comes up to you and tell her that, like, you're doing harder things you can ever do. And you're like, don't tell me that, because now I'm scared about the future. Because if my day-to-day life is hard.
So this is actually what I talked to Jordan Hillam about.
Okay.
Because I talk about when people come up, because as the caregiver, they come up and like, I'm so sorry you have to deal with this.
I know.
And my response wants to be, which I hold my tongue and I'm not rude.
That's
But my response wants to be, I'm sorry you don't know that trials are blessings.
Yeah. And
that's rude. You can't say that. But I need to, like, in my mind, say something of, like, I'm sorry you haven't experienced life yet. Like, I'm sorry that you don't know what this whole plan on this earth is to experience hard things and to learn from them and grow from them and share your light with others.
Yeah, because my immediate response is, it has taught me so much. I wouldn't get rid of it if I had the chance. They're like, what? No, what? I'm not trying to be rude. It's just, It always sits in the back of my brain. And I'm like, I really would. I would rather get rid of my celiac before my diabetes because celiac is just annoying. It's just mean.
It's so isolating.
It's
Diabetes isn't isolating like celiac is.
And so, like, it's inspired a lot of my choices I've made because I'm always conscious of it, but it doesn't, like, I don't need it to be my sob story, right? Because it's an easy essay, but I don't want it to define me. So, because I've just been thinking about it, and I really do love it. And it's been, honestly, it's been a little bit of like a check mark on if my people who I surround myself with, if they're cool with diabetes, I can be like, okay, you can stick around. You're a good person. Mm-hmm. And because I haven't had good people stick around and they're not cool with it. They just, and so.
And you're not necessarily doing what you're doing for attention.
No. And that is, I know people who exaggerate their illnesses and stuff for attention. And I'm like, maybe this is a little terrific in me, but negative attention is never good attention. And I will call people out. And I have ruined friendships because of it. Because I've had people who use, the only thing that we would talk about is how hard their medical needs are. And I'll be like, honestly, I don't care right now. I'm sorry, I don't. And they'll be like, you don't care about me? And I'm like, I care about you. But let's talk about literally anything else, because if you just sit and dwell in your brain about how sorry and how sad your life is going to be sorry and sad.
And that's hard.
And it is so hard.
And I would say,
especially being in chronic pain all of the time, all you can think about is how sorry and sad your life is. And
I would encourage anybody that you're talking to, be kind, Gracie.
Yes,
but also
I'm a very kind and I'm not mean. I just am very passionate.
Also, you have been surrounded by medical professionals that will help with mental health.
Yes, and that's a huge.
We've talked about this.
Oh, no. I feel like I've been mean this whole episode.
You have not been mean this whole episode.
I feel like I get mean.
You've not been mean. So, but there are times where there are people that we love very much that have diagnoses that affect everything about them.
It shakes your whole life up. Everything falls over. You got to pick it all up.
And talk to somebody. Talk to a mental health provider. You can't pray it away. This is not something you can pray away. This is not something that you can drink apple cider cinnamon or I don't know.
Manifest it.
Yeah, manifest it out. And that's okay. And I know that you're going to hate me saying this.
Okay, say it. I'm ready.
But you openly sharing about the things that you go through help people to understand it.
That's why I love talking about it.
Even if they're not going through the thing.
I know that. I do know that. And I love, that's any chance I get, just sitting in sacrament meeting, I educate people. Just
yeah, you do.
Random on the
very
bus, young. I just will sit and talk about it. One of my friends in middle school, like one of my longest friends I had, she first started talking to me because she thought I was a suicide bomber. She thought my pump was a bomb. I was like, one, why are you talking to me? If you think I'm a suicide bomber. She was like, oh, I have to get on their good side. I got to buddy up with this one. I'm not going to die here. And so I have taught so many people about things, not if they wanted it, but because I just love talking about it. It has been such a good thing in my life.
Communication is high on you, and context is really powerful.
And empathy is really high. That's more of what I want is, can you hear me when I do that? Side note? No? Okay.
Probably. I don't know.
Sorry. Okay. Restart. I love helping people understand how they can sympathize with me. Because...
In what way? How would you do that?
I don't need the sugar-free Hershey Kisses on Halloween. I can get other things. Like, I want to help because when you want to support somebody, you want to know how to do it. And there are good ways to do it and there's bad ways to do it. And you never want to make it worse by offering your sympathy. And so I love helping people know how they can help me. So, and part of it probably is from you, because from the get-go, you're like, if you're going to help me, don't bring me casserole, right? Because
unless you
carbs and
counted
gluten.
all the carbs and you know exactly how.
You've bought new things, because celiac is
so
a whole
hard.
nother story.
It was so hard. Well, and like, I brought you gluten-free dinner with these Ritz crackers. Like, Ritz crackers aren't gluten-free. What? Like, oh my gosh, I don't trust anything that you brought me.
No, so I don't eat homemade food from other people.
Oh, it's so hard.
Because
it's just
I
so
love
hard.
the gesture, but it's not worth my health.
Yeah.
So I'm a gift person. So it warms my heart when you bring me cookies, but I probably won't eat them. And so I love helping people know, because statistically you're going to run into another person who's diabetic in their life.
Yeah.
Because that's just knowledge, and the world is a lot smaller with technology. So, like, I want to help to let people know, because community is such an important thing with something like diabetes, that you need to know how to help other people, because I'm not going to be the only one you've ever met.
Yeah.
So, and it's important because I really hope that one day somebody's going to be like, oh, I know what you're going through, because I met this little 9-year-old from forever ago, and she talked to me about how this was and how this was, so I brought you this instead of that, because I know, like, you can eat more than an orange.
What advice would you give to 9-year-old Gracie?
Oh, that's a good one. I feel like there's a lot of things. Probably with diabetes related is that diabetes is your whole life, but it doesn't have to be your whole personality kind of thing. Because, like, I remember cooking with Mara in our house because we made deviled eggs, because there was a Disney book that had all the carbs written on it. And thinking, like, this is so hard. And I remember hiding under the couch because I didn't want to get an insulin shot to eat the food, so I just wouldn't eat. And I remember sitting crying, trying to poke my finger, because I hated needles. And so, as a diabetic, there's a lot of needles. And then a little 9-year-old who's more stubborn than a mule, like, you can't really get her to do anything. And so she just goes through every obstacle physically possible to avoid the problem. And it's not something you can avoid. And so you gotta kind of just accept it. Know that it's gonna be your whole life. It's not your whole personality, though. Like, you were more than diabetic. And know that, like, it's not the end of the world. Because any sort of diagnosis feels like the end of the world. Always. There's Disney movies on it. Like, it feels like the end of the world. Because we don't like changes to our life and the way that we're living.
We don't like feeling weak.
And we don't like feeling weak. And it's just human nature. And it's so hard. Because I was old enough to remember what it's like before being diabetic. But I also remember how sick I was. I was always sick. And looking at pictures, I looked sickly.
Well, you look tall and lanky. We just didn't know that you were tall, lanky, and in DKA.
Yeah. Well, I was also whiter than a ghost. And
that's just your beautiful self. That doesn't have anything to do with anything.
Well, no, I looked sickly. Like, I was a little sick kid. But I wasn't sad. Like, I was happy.
No, you were a happy kid. What would you say to the mom of Gracie, 9-year-old Gracie? What would you say to her?
I'd probably just like, look at me! I'm not dead yet!
Oh my God.
Woo!
We did it!
Woo! We made it to 20!
Oh my gosh.
Because 9 to 20, that's 11 years. That's 11 years. I'm so old. And I'm out of the house comfortably. I'm doing great. I am in a relationship
healthy
relationship that our whole thing is in that I'm the diabetic sickly person. Like, I'm not a pity case. And I know that. And yeah, no, just like, I've made it so far. And a lot of it is because of you. And it didn't stop our family is another big thing. Like, we have continued on, and it didn't break our bank. It didn't. None of the other kids have these drastic problems because you have an oldest with type 1, so you couldn't, like you have managed to care and love for all of your other kids. I lasted 10 years without a problem in a hospital. I have done, like, we as a family, I've made it. And we have done so well. And my biggest problem right now isn't my diabetes. And that's, and when a diagnosis happens, your biggest problem is your diabetes. And you never can think, you're not going to get out, you don't think you're going to get out of that stupid whirlpool that keeps sucking you down. So I think that would probably be the biggest thing. I was like, my biggest problem right now isn't diabetes, because that's huge. That's huge.
So I have one more question.
Okay, go.
What are you going to tell future Gracie?
Oh. Probably nothing diabetes related. Okay. To be honest with you, because it's not my biggest problem right now. I have so many other problems.
Okay.
Being an adult is hard. But, like, probably I just want to help people. That's the biggest thing, is how can I help people more? Not just with their diabetes, just, like, in general. Because I know what it feels like to be isolated. And I don't want anybody to feel that way. And so, like, how can I help more people?
Well, and, like, part of this whole Joyrific podcast and community I'm trying to build is to bring people together to have a communication foundation to know what to do in some scenario. Yeah. And if you don't know what to do, like, let's try and figure it out together. Yeah. And it's okay to fumble, and it's okay to bumble and mess it up, because life is messy, and, like, that's... And
it's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be.
You need a little bit of a mess to live.
As I talked to Will Perez, and go listen to the Will Perez one about being happy.
He's great. I love Will.
We talked a lot about this church history tour that we went on. How you would have died.
Oh, I had.
If you were a pioneer, like, literally, insulin wasn't invented until 1922. Yeah, no. So in 1830, 1840, my 1850
is watching period pieces, and, like, whenever there's, like, oh, they have the sugar sickness, I'm like, wait, like 100, 200 years and we'll solve that. And I'm like, I have the sugar sickness and I'm alive.
Oh, that's awesome.
Anyways, it's happened like twice in this new show I'm watching.
Oh, that's
and I'm like,
funny.
I know that.
So we talked about being happy and this pursuit of happiness. And as we came up with Joyrific, my rules were always be helpful, be happy. And which it's now be helpful, be kind, because kind is a choice, and you can choose to be kind. But as he describes what being happy, this pursuit is actually a pursuit of holiness. And he has articles from the 1830s that talk about be a happy new year, and can be synonymous with holy new year.
I love words. That's cool.
And as we were talking, I said, I love this be happy, be holy, this pursuit of that. But I also love, like, WHOLE, like being whole, and how you are a whole person, and diabetes is just a tiny little sliver of that.
Well, it's a little bit bigger than a tiny little sliver. But
okay, that's true.
But I am a whole person. Like, when you look at me, you don't first think, oh, she's sick. She's sick. I need to go bring her a casserole.
But somebody in a wheelchair, you could look at them and you could see that they
But also,
are in
that's
a
not the first thing I see. See, that also is a huge part of... Because that sounded so posh of me. That's not the first thing. No, but I mean, as someone who has a disability, seeing someone else who has a disability, I always compliment hair. And I always compliment clothes. And I always compliment the most random things. And shoes. Some of my siblings hate it because they're like, Gracie, that's so weird. Or they would. But being a nanny, I have little kids who come up to me all the time. They're like, "What's that?" Poking at my sites and stuff. I'm like, "Oh, it's just a special Band-Aid for me." Sometimes I'll show them. Like, if I know that the kid will understand, I'll show them. Like, I watch these really smart kids, and I've told them, and they get it as much as like a 4-year-old and 6-year-old can. And
which you've talked to your younger siblings.
Yeah, my siblings get it. The diabetes club in the clubhouse.
Oh my gosh, it's the so cutest
sweet.
thing.
But because you don't want that to be the first thing that you see. So I go out of my way to compliment, like, because one, you never know what a person's going through, and two, you don't want to be defined by something that you can't control. So always compliment something you can control. So like, if they have a fun hair color, be like, "Oh my gosh, I love your hair color," because it's a form of expression that helps influence things that you can't change. So that's like, I love fashion, I love hair. I know I'm in sweats right now, but it's because it's a way that I can express myself more than just my diabetes and stuff. Which, again, not everything is based around diabetes, but everything is based around diabetes. So
we created the T&D Club a long time ago. That we had stickers that we did. I mean, we partnered with Nick Jonas on a lot of his stuff, and there is purpose behind creating a club, creating a community.
You need it. You can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
Which is hard to accept. Like, there's steps to accepting something as impactful as diabetes, and part of it is like acknowledging that it's not gonna be the end of the world for forever, and another part of it is find people who are like you, because
so talking with Dr. Devin Franson, we talk about the 3 phases of wounds. And first one is acknowledging that you have a wound. You're cut open, you're bleeding out.
Like, you need help.
You need help. That's step 1.
Don't die.
Step 2, you get it stitched up. You get the diagnosis. You get whatever it is that you get insulin, you get stitched up, you get whatever it is.
Yeah, and you can't use that hand very well until
you gotta
let it heal.
You gotta let it heal. You know, this is the learning process. This is where you apply the knowledge of the diagnosis. And then step 3 is when the scar has the wound has turned into a scar, and you're able to teach somebody else. So then that process starts back over. So then you find somebody that's in step 1 and you help them.
And it's so hard getting to step 3, because I would be happy with step 2 for so long.
So the thing in the textbook about chronic illness is that anytime you can re-enter step 1.
Yes, that is true. Absolutely.
And here we were that Saturday where I thought, and I actually recorded Dr. Franson's on Friday.
Yeah.
Before the Saturday that you go into the ER. And I was like, we totally have a scar. Like type 1.
No,
we got it.
It's an open wound.
And then within 24 hours, it was an open wound again.
Mama, you jinxed me.
I'm so sorry. I thought I'd learned.
It's only taken 10 years. You got a little bit of a refresher.
So that wound aspect of it, and I love that Jesus, when he comes, right, he shows his wounds.
Oh no, he teaches.
And
that's a huge part. And part of the teaching is important because, one, it's a recognition that it is Jesus, right? Like, that's how we know him and how we can verify for him. But also, every time, it's that they openly weep for him and his scars.
And he's resurrected perfectly.
Yeah.
Perfectly with wounds.
Yes.
Which is not perfect. Because that's an imperfection of him, but he is showing us that is what makes him whole. WHOLE.
Yeah. And that is good. I do. That's so good. And another part of it is education, like teaching, because it's not, we are visual creatures as humans, and we need a little bit of a visualization. I know I do.
And that's what Will concluded with, is to be happy is to be a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
And that pursuit of continuing
and I think
to learn.
To go along with that too, you can't learn if you aren't teaching.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have learned so much about my diabetes just from teaching others.
Yeah.
Like, I've learned so many tips and tricks because knowledge isn't a one-way path. We're always looping around and always. That's why I love history. I love history because everything happening right now in any part of your life can be found in some relation to something that has happened in the past. That's why I love reading scripture too, because everyone's like, I opened the first page and it was like revelation to me, and it was the page I needed, and it was because that's Jesus's whole thing, is that he has felt what we have felt before because things have happened before, and human race is a community. We need, like, everything has happened to somebody else. And so...
Well, that's like Jesus in Gethsemane.
Yeah.
Like, that's the story.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
But we also need more than just one person. We need stories. We need history. We would be lost without history. We wouldn't be a society. That's another thing with, it's the broken femur, and if they have some sort of record, because that's how you learn, that's how you grow, and that's how you get...
And you pass it on to the next generation.
Yeah, that's how you offer support and consultation. It's a comfort, and you can't be happy without a sense of peace. And the easiest way to find peace is to find comfort. And a big one is scripture, and a big one for me is history, and knowing that it's okay, and we can see our growth. Like 1920, we have insulin, and when we didn't have it in the 1735, and it's amazing if we look back and can sit and be like, we're okay. And it's so hard. It's so hard.
Context-y way of saying things.
I know.
and I think I'll add on there just to conclude, because we are out of time. But a great way to do that, a great way to do the things that you're saying, is to continue to be grateful for what you have, what you don't have, what experiences you're going through, and write it down.
Oh, I love journaling.
Writing it down is important because it helps you to remember.
I was reading one of my journals recently, and it took me like 20 days to get to any sort of mention of diabetes, which I thought was funny because it is a daily thing for me. But the way I journal and why I'm excited to do it is because it allows me to live in every day. Otherwise, days just fly by and you don't notice or recognize them. But I remember the days that I've journaled about because I purposely am looking for things to write down in my journal. And awareness, and it took me so long to mention diabetes because I'm always aware of it, but it doesn't always negatively or positively impact me. It's just it's walking for me.
Breathing, walking.
Yeah, so our history and our trials and our struggles and our burdens and our blessings and our curses, it's more than just the thing itself. It's how you perceive it too. And it is
that narrative that you put in your own head.
It's so hard when you're in the moment, in the whirlpool, that it's gonna be okay. And so you gotta count your windows, calm yourself down so you don't have a panic attack, and you gotta think about the good things, or it's something that happened in your life that you can write down, something enough that if you're on the phone call, you can tell it to your grandma. Because
I had a quote in college on my computer. I mean, this is back in the olden days, but it said, "Everything will be right in the end. If it's not right, it's not the end."
Yeah, and things will come back up from the thing that was the problem, and that's okay, right? Like, it gives us an opportunity to heal and remember. And there are times, like, I have been trying to rebalance my numbers since being in the hospital, because your body holds on to things too, which is a whole other thing I could talk about for forever. And so I keep going low, which going low is really annoying by itself, because
low is immediate danger,
painful,
high is long-term damage.
And it's exhausting and all these things. It's really interesting. And I have not been able to go. Last time I was here, I ate over 25 fruit roll-ups because they're quick and easy, And when you're low, you don't really want to think about anything because you physically can't think about anything other than put food in my mouth. And I ate so many and I was still low all of the time. And it is and I was angry. Like, I was like, rah. And, but also, now that I'm not that low all the time, we talk about all the time, we joke, because the Russell quote from Up of like, I'm tired, I'm this, my knee hurts. And it's like, which knee hurts? My elbow hurts. That's how it feels, because I'm so done. And now it's just funny, because
that's funny.
If you sit and be angry with it, you're going to be angry at it. I hate to tell you it. But also, you're allowed to be angry about it. You just can't sit
feel
with it
the
forever.
feels.
Yeah. Feelings are important.
Leave room for the feels.
But when the time has passed, you got to start using your broken arm. You got to let that wound heal, otherwise it's going to cause more damage.
Concluding thought.
Okay. I like to ramble. Sorry.
No, you get to finish us off here. You get to have the concluding thought.
I feel like we didn't talk very much about medication.
I know. I kind of feel like maybe we should change the word. You are a word person, so like be diabetic would be dumb.
I'm not going to do that. But that goes against the whole thing that I was talking about. I
know. But that's kind of.
I kind of want to be disabled a little bit.
Be disabled?
Which is hard. But.
So we're coming.
Or like be human. Because it's more than just.
Oh, I like that.
It's more than just your disability. It's more than what you're going through right now. Because in the long story short, you are human. And we all have stories. Otherwise, we'd be really boring.
Yeah. Okay. I support us saying this episode could be titled Be Human.
Okay. I like that.
Be human. All right. Your concluding thought
that itches for our context.
For our Be Human episode, what is your concluding thought?
Stroking my beard, as I think. My concluding thought for being human is that life is hard. It's the short of the long, because life is hard. And it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be easy all of the time. But we have to be aware of what's our surroundings. You have to have something happen in your day that you noticed and can process enough that if your grandma called you, you could talk to her about it. And you have to remember that you're not alone. And more than that, too, you have to remember that there are people around you that you can offer your help to. Because I highly doubt that there's a single person on this earth who does not want to help somebody in some way.
It's kind of like our eternal drive.
Yeah, like not to go down the whole like rabbit hole of service is the greatest happiness, because I was a rebellious teenager, and don't tell me that, because I don't want to help other people. I just want to be by myself. But there's other ways that you can help people, and one of my ways that I help people is I help teach them how they can help other people. And it brings me so much joy, because everybody needs support, and us as a human race, we should be a support group for each other.
And that's why it is the top of the Joyrific chart.
It is.
Be helpful, be kind.
And
stop murmuring. Like, no whining.
No whining. Whining, there's a place and a time for whining.
Yeah, and you don't have your ears on, so figure out why it is that you're whining, figure out what it is that you need to address.
And sit with it, and then, because you also have the chart.
Caution sign.
The caution sign, and if you have been impaled, or your pancreas stops working, or you're just tired, or you're just hungry, you need to address those things before you can be helpful again. You need to put on your own life jacket before you can put on your babies.
Yes, put on your own oxygen mask before you put on your babies.
Like, we need to help support people in a way that they need to be supported. And a big part of that is you got to step outside of yourself, and you have to learn how other people want to be supported. Because I love teaching, but I know a lot of people who would rather die than teach or tell people about their diabetes. And it's hard because at the same time they want the connection and they want the support. You need the support, you need the connection. And we need to help be vulnerable enough with other people and be human enough with other people that we can give them ways that they can help us.
So at the beginning of this episode, we're going to need to put in, we started off with the word being be medicated.
And after a long ramblings,
we got to the conclusion that instead of be medicated, we're going to let Matt Larson do that one. We're going to talk about
he's great.
Human.
I could listen to Matt Larson for forever. But
so be human.
Yes.
You are here on this earth. You are a child of God.
You have your own personality, and you are not your problems. And it is impossible to feel that way when you are in the middle of your problems, in the middle of your curse and trial and blessing.
Yeah, you're bleeding out. You got to get help.
You are going to die if you don't get help.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm forever going to be this way. And you're not. And you're going to be okay.
It's taken a decade to learn that lesson, but it's a good one.
It's an important one.
Thanks for coming on this podcast, Gracie.
Oh, sorry it took me so long. I like rambling with microphones. It's fun.
It is fun, right? So we can plan another one. I would love to plan another one with you.
Another like 4 months.
And I really enjoy listening to you and your perspective on things. You've taught me a lot. You're a good teacher. Whether I wanted the lesson or not is another story, but we're coming around.
I want diabetes, so we're here now.
Be here and be human.
Be here and be human.
Thanks for coming, Gracie. It's been fun.
This better have recorded. I'm not doing this again.